You're listening to the Integrative Health Simplified podcast with Kari, Coody, pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. Here we talk all things straightforward and honest when it comes to holistic health and simplifying your best steps forward while eliminating all the gimmicks and confusion. Leave the overwhelm at the door and get ready for impactful action steps that get to the real root of your issue and actually move the needle in your health. Let's dive into the show. Hello there, and welcome back into the podcast. This is Kari, Coody, and I'm your host. So glad you're back for another episode. We have actually been in a series called Integrative and Conventional Healthcare, and I have really enjoyed talking about this subject because I feel like it's something that sort of can be black and white. It can be very just taboo even to talk about the differences between the two and the pros and cons and all of that. So I really hope you've enjoyed this very real conversation. And I have had a few guests on and we've had conversations around this, but this is actually the end of this series. And I have yet one more really important conversation around the evolution of integrative healthcare. And I brought on fellow pharmacist Kristen, and I brought her on because I love the way that she doesn't hold anything back. She just tells it like it is. And I can really appreciate that. And so I hope you enjoy this very real conversation about how integrative health has evolved from her really unique perspective. She is a traditionally trained pharmacist. She also, of course, was a holistic health coach and was in that field for several years. And then she actually transitioned to helping other health coaches run their business. And now she's been called to be a mom, just a stay-at-home mom, right? And that's such an important job. And I'm so thrilled for her. But you can see how this gives her a very unique perspective, right? While she's still, of course, taking care of her own health, right? She has this vantage point that is very unique. And so I really loved our conversation where it went. And so I hope you enjoy this conversation around the evolution of integrative healthcare. Well, hello, and welcome back into another episode of the Integrative Health Simplified podcast. It's Kari here, and I have with me a special guest today that I'm super excited to just chat with and for you guys to get to know. And I just love the way that we're very similar in the fact that we can just tell it like it is, which I really appreciate about my friend Kristen. So I do have Kristen with me. She is a fellow pharmacist, and I'll just kind of let her introduce herself so you can get to know her a little bit better.
Hi. As Kari said, I'm Kristen. Yes, I am a fellow pharmacist. I have been on the holistic health journey and holistic health space for quite some time. I graduated pharmacy school in 2012. And back when I was in pharmacy school, I went to pharmacy school in the South. And I remember being the only one in my class who was really into holistic living. At that time, I happened to be vegan, which now is not the best decision.
Have a whole conversation about that.
We're going to have a whole conversation about that. But it just goes to show that I was very into really learning about ways to improve your health that didn't include medication, yet somehow I found myself in pharmacy school. And so I was reading labels and I was using safer products, and that wasn't even a thing then. So this has been a journey that I have been on for so long now. This wasn't something that happened a couple of years ago. Really, it's been a part of my life for so long now. So I was a pharmacist, and then as my intuition in the holistic space grew, and as my interest in the holistic space grew, I actually became a holistic health coach as well. And then from there, I was helping other holistic health coaches grow their practice. And at some point in time, my husband and I kind of had a moment where we were like, is this what we want? And so last year, I actually made the decision to step away from clinical pharmacy to be a stay-at-home mom and homemaker. And so it's been a real journey. Holistic health is still a huge part of my life, but I have no real, I don't have anything in the game. I don't have anything. I'm not a health coach myself. So my opinions isn't me trying to sell working with me or anything like that. So it's just been a really interesting journey to where I am. I couldn't have planned it better if I tried, but the Lord knew exactly where it was supposed to be. And so I am just embracing it. And I still am on Instagram, still kind of like sharing my journey and things that I've learned and what I use and what I love and that type of thing. But it's been a long, long journey to where I am right now.
But I love it because I think you guys can see why I brought her on, because she has such an interesting point of view, just all the things that you've been through, all the experiences, and now where you sit, just really having learned all that, but yet not really in it anymore, if that makes sense from what you've shared. I just think that's such a unique, viewpoint to have. And so that's kind of, I'm doing this series to just talking about conventional versus integrative medicine or health or whatever you want to call it. And I just wanted to chat today about like the evolution of the integrative space, because like you, I have been in it for a while also. Probably not like I graduated pharmacy school in 2007. So I am dating myself a little bit. But definitely for the past 10 to 12 years, I've definitely been in more of the holistic space and just in that mindset. So this is not something new. So I have seen it evolve also, but I think you particularly have a really interesting point of view just from seeing the business side of it, but also seeing the health coaching side of it. And now kind of looking back to see all of it encompassing. So we can just dive into this conversation as far as, wherever you think is best to start in what you see as the evolution of integrative health.
Totally. So I think we can all agree that, 5 to 7 years ago, this integrative holistic health space was very new. It was very up and coming. It would not be abnormal for you to talk to someone and then have no idea what you meant by holistic health or not conventional medicine, right? Like most people didn't know. It was a much smaller, tight-knit community. I think the holistic health space, as far as health coaching, looked a little bit different because there were not nearly as many supplements, protocols, gadgets that were really kind of clouding up the space. And quite frankly, from the business perspective, it's big money. And so then comes into play, what's the real priority here? Is somebody trying to make money by selling all of these things, or is it really what I need, right? And so I think we've seen the holistic space go from this evolution of, let's take the conventional model. And I think we can all agree that conventional medicine is fantastic when you need it. And that happens sometimes, right? There will be a time when you might need, conventional medicine, and we are so thankful for it. You are so thankful for an emergency room when you really need it. But we can also agree that it's abused. It's widely overused. It's widely depended on. We're looking for a magic pill and a quick fix. And I think that is unfortunately somewhat of what we see the holistic space going down, which is we've kind of shifted viewpoints from like, how can I prevent this and what can I do to get to that root cause, to what can I do now to make this go away? What can I put on it as a Band-Aid? And so I do think that Band-Aids can exist in the form of prescription medicines, sure. But I think we've seen a lot in the past couple of years of it turning more towards supplements, protocols, and gadgets and using them as a Band-Aid and still not truly getting to the root cause. So I think we've seen it become much more mainstream, which is a wonderful thing. I'm so glad to see holistic health become a much more mainstream topic and understanding. It's something that people are willing to go towards or research more, or simply just have that conversation with your doctor and be really someone who stands up for their care and what they're going to get, versus just going into a doctor's office and it's whatever you say, doc, you're the expert. But more so, hey, I looked into this, I researched, this is what I found. What are your thoughts on this? Like really becoming a player in your own care. So I think that evolution really, it's brought good. It's really made the holistic space much more accessible, much more attainable. You can work with anybody in a holistic space in the virtual capacity now, which is fantastic. It's easily accessible, but then becomes that second part of what's happened to the explosion of it. And are we really doing what we set out to do? Or have we become kind of clouded and a little bit misguided by the number of options and supplements and protocols and things that are out there? And I don't mean to be rude about this, but I don't think anybody would disagree that if you look in the holistic space, if you look at the number of health coaches that are out there, how many health coaches and practitioners themselves are not in great health and have been struggling with and are constantly struggling with health issues. And you have to ask yourself, because believe me, this is not trying to be rude, because this was me as well. And we can talk about that too, how I've incorporated more into my healing and more looking at the nervous system side of things, especially given the time that we live in. And so, when we're looking at that, are we going, these practitioners have access to everything. They have access to all of the labs, all of the supplements, all of the things. If they're not getting it right, if something's not, if we're still seeing so many practitioners who have constantly been sick and are constantly dealing with ailments, what's up? What's not working here that people aren't truly getting better? And the flip side of that, how many people do you know who would consider themselves holistic, who have the water filters, the air filters, the red lights, the saunas, the prana mats, the everythings? They consider themselves a biohacker. They have all the things and still have symptoms and are still seeking and searching and looking to try and find the answers and aren't there yet. I think that's a real wake-up call for our space to go, something's not adding up here.
Yeah. And I just think it's so interesting that the basics have always been the basics. And yet, okay, so we didn't want to do the basics, so we would previously have turned to conventional medicine. Yeah. Now we still don't want to do the basics, so we turn to, because it seems better. It seems like, oh, we're doing something better for our health because we're just going to take herbal supplements and do, have all the gadgets, but yet we're still not healthy.
Still a Band-Aid. It's a natural Band-Aid. It's still a Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. So, I think it is sad because just like with anything, you kind of need to follow the dollars, right? As you mentioned, it is a very big business now, and I think it's only going to get bigger.
Yep.
Yes. I mean, people realize the way that they make money is they recommend supplements or gadgets. And guys, I'm in this space, so I get it. And of course, sometimes I do recommend those things because they're needed, but I'm certainly not going to recommend them until the basics are covered. And it's really interesting how some people will come and they're like, you don't want to put me on any supplements or any, you don't want to change it. And I'm like, no, you're not doing the basics. Yeah. And so, you again, that's a whole nother conversation, but I do definitely see it because again, we're in tune with culture a lot of times, which is unfortunate. And that is a whole other conversation also. But yeah, it's interesting, the space that we find us in, and just trying to have the right heart behind helping people, but yet that's still kind of what they want. It is almost like being in the conventional system and not to give them a pill, but that's all they want.
Exactly. When you say that, I think of somebody who is desperately not feeling well, and maybe they have a sick child and they go to a doctor, and the doctor might say, oh, your child is an ear infection, let's wait it out. And the parent is like, no, just give me an antibiotic. We want to feel better. And I think that translates a lot to the holistic space as well, which is, I hear you saying I need to do these things, but I want to feel better now. And I think we have to simply refocus and reprioritize what we're working towards, because it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but we want this quick fix. And it causes us to search and seek and find, like I had mentioned. And from a nervous system perspective, when you immerse your life in the holistic space and that becomes your idol, not only is that really dangerous and risky, I think, from a biblical perspective, but from a nervous system perspective, you quite literally hardwire yourself to an illness identity, to your body saying, I am sick, I am ill, I need to seek, I need to fix, I need to find. It quite literally keeps you sick. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, because they think, I'm being intuitive, I'm being resourceful, I am taking it upon myself to research these things and find these things out. But it's a very slippery slope from an interest in holistic health to becoming an obsession, to the point that it is our night, our day, our life, our everything. And your body, it's like a dopamine hit. Yeah. Right. That's how you feel when you when you follow someone on Instagram and they're sharing stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I could do this. I should try this. I should try this. Every time you feel that is a dopamine hit. Guess what? Your body loves.
It's just even thinking about this. Honestly, I'm like, oh, take a deep breath, because wow.
your body really becomes addicted to that. Your body loves that dopamine, right? We get it in the form of social media, in the form of TV, but we also get it in the form of these ideas that this quick fix might work for me. This other pill, maybe I need to try that. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe it's just because I'm just not following this person. And so it's time to give yourself some permission to really embrace the fact that we may never have perfect health this side of heaven. We are broken individuals, and this obsession with health is not serving us. Yeah. And you've heard me say this before, because you are the practitioner that I recommend. People would be so much better off. And I get so many people in my DMs who are so confused about what to do and where to go and because there's so much chatter and loud noise in our space now. So many people who are selling the red lights and the saunas and the things and the this and the that, and they will spend $300 to $3,000 on a sauna or a red light or an air filter and this and that and still not feel better. And that money would have been much better spent working one-on-one with a holistic practitioner who can take a focused deep dive on their individual situation. And it's so easy to get caught up in the holistic space and see people promoting different things, but it might not be right for you. It may not move the needle at all. And I think that's one thing that, being part of this holistic journey that I've been on for so long now, literally over, almost well over a decade now for me, it's like you really learn what's going to move the needle and what's not. And buying all these gadgets and things like that, it's not it. Like a red light and a sauna are not going to fix your problems. And it maybe ever, definitely not overnight. Yeah. But we see it, and we hear so many people in the space talking about it that we are literally convinced that that is what we need. And in reality, I would encourage you to take that money and really consider working one-on-one with a practitioner who can decide and look at your situation, right? Your individual situation, instead of you spending the money on these gadgets and then obsessing and being everywhere and pinging those dopamine hits.
Once you get one, you want all of them.
You do. I mean, you truly do. And I get it. It's like shopping for clothes or, anything. It's fun. I get it. It's fun. It's new.
You're doing the right things too. Like, believe me, when we've been there, like, I mean, we can definitely get caught up in this. We're not perfect. I know I can speak for you. We've been there, done that. And we've learned that it's what doesn't work.
That's definitely one of the reasons that I'm so outspoken about this, is because I basically have every gadget there is, whether I bought it myself or I've been gifted it by a company. And I can tell you that the things that are going to move the needle in your health are focusing on those foundations, not for a little while, not while you're on a protocol, but making them part of your daily life, working one-on-one with a practitioner and allowing yourself to really put your trust in them and their expertise to help you feel better, and removing yourself a little bit. I'm not saying don't be a part of it, but I'm saying when it becomes such an obsession, it really becomes hardwired. And then the third thing would be the nervous system. We've got to work on our nervous systems. And this is such a huge thing for me, because I am so guilty of this. When I health coach, I recommended to every single client, you need to work on your stress, your trauma, and your nervous system. And I will be the first one to admit that I thought I didn't need it.
Yeah.
I will be the first one. I can remember the first freebie that I made was the biggest health mistake that you're making. It was a mini course called The Biggest Health Mistake That You're Making. And it was about not tuning into your nervous system. And I will be the first to admit that I thought, well, I haven't had crazy major trauma in my life. Like, you know what I mean? And the thing is, trauma can be anything. It truly can be anything that was too much for you to handle, that made you feel uncomfortable, that made maybe your heart race a little bit. And that can be anything from, I grew up in a home where my parents weren't home much. They worked a lot. Financially, we weren't secure. I was bullied. I never fit in. I had XYZ health condition. I witnessed something bad that was scary that happened. Like, there is such a range of what can happen and what actually constitutes trauma or stress in your life. But the bottom line is, you don't get to decide when that stress ends. Your nervous system does. Yeah. And so I'll give an example here. When I was in pharmacy school, I could never do anything with needles. I have always been very needle shy. It always completely freaked me out. This is why I didn't go pre-med. This is why I ended up not going pre-dental. I just was very freaked out by needles. And I remember when we were in our rotations in our 4th year, they said, as part of your hospital rotation, you need to sit in on a surgery. And I said, I literally cannot do that. Like, I will pass out. It is not my thing. I cannot do it. And it took me years to realize that when I was about 9 years old, I actually witnessed a horrific car accident where it did not turn out well. And we were like basically the first people to kind of see it on the scene. So my parents stopped and called 911, and there was blood and there was screaming and there was a lot happening. And my nervous system as a 9-year-old could not understand that qualified, talented people were coming to help and it was going to be okay. To me, it was just like heart pounding out of chest, terror, fear. And that carries with me till now. And it impacts your life. And so I give that example because there have been something that happened in everybody's life at some point that seemed like a lot. That it doesn't matter what it was. And it does not need to be something majorly horrific. Right. And I don't even want to give examples. You can use your brain to think about what that is, but it can be much smaller things, but it's something that our nervous system wasn't able to deal with. And we hold on to it and it becomes hardwired. We make habits and decisions based off of that because it just happens automatically. We don't go, do I want to be afraid of needles today? No, like it just becomes part of you. And so I always say, if you are living in the year 2023, you have had something happen at some point in your life that was a lot for you to handle. And I think one of the confusing parts about nervous system regulation and brain retraining and nervous system health is people think, no problem, I get quality sleep. No problem. I have self-care Sundays where I put a mud mask on my face and take a bubble bath. No problem. If I get stressed, I go for a walk. But it's different than that. It's teaching your body this innate sense of okayness, that you are an adult now and that it is okay, that it is safe and that it is okay. And that looks much different than the going for the walk, than doing the exercise, listening to a podcast or reading a book. In my mind, those things may actually, in some cases, make it worse for some people because they're kind of an escape outlet. It's kind of I'm feeling this right now, so I'm going to do something. And it's more so being and being okay, And so to me, anyways, those are the most important things that you can do for your health. Those 3 things, you put them together and those are huge. And again, I think this is why you see so many people in our space who have all the red lights and are eating completely pro-metabolic and who are practitioners themselves and are still not doing well because we're really missing the point of where we need to focus and putting our focus on the right things and really reprioritizing life and what's important.
Yeah, because everything kind of flows from that, like how your nervous system is and all the things that you just talked about. That matters so much because from a physiological standpoint, you burn through like minerals faster and your everything is kind of, I don't know, it's like a ripple effect, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So it's like you can do all the things to support your body as far as like eating right and supplements and all like sleep and all of that. But it's like we have to wonder, like, why is your body burning through all of those things? Why does it continually feel off? That it goes back to what you're saying.
Totally. And I think that is a big misconception, especially in the past 2 years. When I think that in the past 2 years, minerals have been a huge, root cause protocol. Minerals have been, super, super popular, important, and I don't disagree with that. I think minerals are absolutely the foundation, right? This is how our hormones function, our different enzymatic reactions that happen within our body. But like you're saying, when we have such a high, when we're stuck in that fight or flight and we are sympathetic all the time, our mineral burn rate is through the roof. I don't care what you supplement, you're never going to catch up to it. Right? You're never going to heal in a sympathetic state. If your body is in fight or flight and thinks that you are in danger, its primary focus is your survival. It is not pretty hair. It is not a shiny complexion. It is not being fertile or having normal periods. It does not care. It cares about you living. Number one, and if you were being literally killed somewhere, you would hope your body would divert its attention to keeping you alive and not those things. So it means well. It really means well and wants to protect us. But unfortunately, because our nervous system is so primitive in ways, it cannot tell the difference between, a troll on the internet who really hurt your feelings and you truly fighting for your life because someone is chasing you down with a dagger or a tiger chasing you. It can't differentiate. And so we get stuck here. We get stuck in these sympathetic, this fight or flight all the time. And we live on stress hormones. And here's the other issue. When you're living on stress hormones, I can speak to this personally. It feels awesome. You feel superwoman. Yeah. You can do all the things. You don't need a lot of sleep. You're living on caffeine. You're just hopes and dreams. Like you're wearing all the hats. You're doing all of the things. And it feels magnificent because you've got these stress hormones. And it's great until it isn't, when you crash, right? And so I think we find a lot of people there too, who are like, oh, I hear what you're saying, but I actually feel great. And in reality, those, fasted workouts, the coffee on the empty stomach, all these little decisions that we're making, not eating enough, eating crap. Yeah. That's, we're really getting to that point of burnout or fatigue or crashing. You just might not be there yet. So I totally agree with you when it comes to minerals and all the things. They're incredibly important, but you're never going to outrun your nervous system. Yeah. You're never going to do it until you get to a place where you can calm down your nervous system. You will be on this hamster wheel of holistic health. That's what I always refer to. If you feel like you're on a hamster wheel, holistic health, it's because you're constantly chasing the next protocol, the next supplement, the next thing. And you're going to waste a lot of money that way. You're going to get really frustrated that way, but you're never going to get to a point where you feel really good about your health because your nervous system is not on the same page as you. You've really got to get your nervous system back down to a place where it feels safe and secure. Because if we've got a bathtub and it's got a leak in it, you can pour all of the water that you want in the top, but it's still going to be coming out. It's exhausting, right? Like that constant, got to fill it. But if we patch that leak and now we're adding things in as needed, right? And we're taking better care of ourselves, that's much more sustainable from a financial perspective, from an energy perspective, right? It can be exhausting to feel like you are running on that hamster wheel and getting nowhere. That's a lot of what I hear in my DMs, which is, I tried this, I did this, I tried this, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I've spent all this money and I've tried all these things and I don't even know what to believe anymore or where to spend my money. It's because if you're in that nervous system state of survival, you're always going to feel that like needing to add more in because it's got that leak there still.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard to watch, honestly, because I get clients that work with me from all different backgrounds and where they're at in their health journey and all that. But really one of the best things that they can do, especially if they've tried a lot of things and they've researched a lot of things, is to stop researching.
Yeah, totally.
And just take a deep breath. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about one-on-one, because again, if you've done all the things and granted, there are certainly people that come to me that haven't, but the majority have. It's like, you need to put, if you're putting money with me or with a practitioner, you need to trust them to guide you. And that should be why you chose them. I mean, hopefully. And to just, that in itself is a huge relief and a huge stressor and load taken off your nervous system. And just, but people find it really hard to do that because they're addicted to.
Totally. Again, I think you feel like you're being resourceful, and those dopamine hits from finding these things and giving them a try, it makes you really excited. It makes you like hyped up. But I completely agree with you. And something that I really want to make sure that people understand is, I think people have a really varied idea of what it might cost to work with a holistic practitioner. And of course, I recommend one practitioner on my page, and that is Kari. And I always recommend her because it can actually be really quite affordable to work with a practitioner. It is not nearly as expensive as you think it might be. And in the long run, I actually do believe that you save quite a bit of money. Instead of going, Susie Influencer was talking about this and this and this and this and this and this and this, I'm going to buy all these supplements. They may not all be right for me and I may not really get anywhere, versus Kari is going to look specifically at me and my situation and what might be right for me. It may not always be beef liver. It may not always be cod liver oil, but we see these things and we go, that's got to be right for me. And it may not be. It may not be based off of your particular situation. And when you work one-on-one with someone, they can pull that apart and tease that apart so that you're only spending money and time and energy and effort on the things that are truly going to move the needle in your health. And so I think a lot of people get really scared thinking it's going to end up being thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and I can't afford that. When in reality, working with a practitioner is much less expensive than you think. They likely have a very affordable payment plan. I know you do. And you're going to be really only focusing your time, energy, and effort on the things that will move the needle for you. And can we talk about just how nice it feels when you do start to actually see meaningful change in your health? It is so encouraging. It is so, so wonderful to experience that. And a lot of people haven't. A lot of people have just like tried all the things. Maybe, and here's another example. Maybe you are using the right thing, but you're not using them correctly or not in the right order, or you're trying to do like a parasite cleanse and your detox pathways aren't even open. Like this is very common in our space because you see Susie talk about it. And that doesn't mean it's right for you. It could be all out dangerous for you. It could be a complete waste of money for you. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that in this space, people are here to make money.
I know.
Right? Many influencers, many health coaches, this is their job. Mm-hmm. And they need to earn money. And if you want to buy a red light from them, they're going to let you buy that red light from them. Whether it's the right fit for you or not, whether it will do a dang thing or not, they're going to let you buy it from them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, where would your money be best spent? And I think a lot of people think, well, if I just where my money can afford it, if I get one little device or gadget at a time, it will all add up. And that could not be further from the truth. If there were one wish that I had in the holistic space, I would wish there would be no gadgets. Yeah. Because there is such an overemphasis on them and there's so little delivery. I think it would be so rare to find someone who was like, I did this one thing. I bought the red light, I bought the sauna, and it changed my health. That was it. That was the ticket.
Yeah, I've never heard that actually.
You probably won't, but if you follow these different health accounts, you would think by the force and excitement behind sharing them and sharing a link for them, they must be it. They must be a big deal. And the reality is, again, you've got to follow that money. Mm-hmm. There is a huge economy behind the holistic space. Definitely. I mean, I can tell you because I get reach outs daily from companies asking me to partner with them, asking me to do giveaways with them, asking me to take free products from them and share a review of them. It's big business. It's huge business. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I am a big fan of the foundations and stuff, but when's the last time you heard someone say, well, I bought an Air Doctor and because of it, I'm healed? You're not gonna, or any of the gadgets. But again, I think it's this idea that like, oh, I'll just chip off like one thing at a time and I'll spend a little. And now we've all got these big collections of gadgets. And what's changed besides our bank accounts decreased? Mm-hmm. And again, I say this lovingly because I have been in your shoes.
I know, really.
The gadgets, they are all collecting dust because none of them are worth my time on a daily basis because they don't actually move the needle. Mm-hmm. They like really, they don't. And so I do wish that more people would let go of the reins a little bit, stop trying to figure everything out yourself, find a practitioner that you truly trust, give them your case, your information, and let them help you. Let them serve you, right? Yeah. And I think you'll notice a huge shift just there, like letting go of that like white knuckle grip mm-hmm. and taking a step back and going, this person's a professional. I'm going to allow them to help me.
And I think it's important to know who you're working with also. You know, I mean, I just think sometimes people don't necessarily know exactly what goes into to how somebody approaches, you know, your specific health case. What is there? I don't know. I just think now we have it's a double-edged sword, of course, with how many accounts there are and just all the things. But that does give you insight into more about that person. You know, if they share or not. Of course, some people share more than others. But I just think that's really important. And trying to find the right person for you, just like you would try to find the right conventional doctor if you did that also. Because it is really important for you to trust whoever you choose to work with. So I think that is one positive that has come from so many people being online now.
Totally. And since this is a business, I think you will find a lot of practitioners and health coaches out there who first step is, let's run all the labs.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 labs. And that will cost you several $1,000s when you're talking about it. But again, unless we're putting those foundations first, what's the point? Like, I understand that, HTMA, blood work, things like that, for sure. But if we're if I know that you're eating like crap, what is the point of running a GI map? What is the point of running a hormone test, a Dutch test, if you don't have your foundations down? But guess what? As a health coach, you get those courses at a discounted rate, or not those courses, those labs at a discounted rate, and you can sell them for a premium and your analysis of them. I think that can be a double-edged sword as well, though, because I will tell you, though, from being a practitioner in the past, there is buy-in when people see their own results on a lab. So for people who need foundations, who don't want to do foundations, if you can say this was your Dutch test result, these were your GI map result, this is what your stool test looked like, this is what we're going with your organic acid test, sometimes they're more likely to buy in. So, I can see both sides of it, but I think it goes back to, you've got to be willing to embrace those foundations and recognize that they need to be part of your life, not just while you're doing your 6-week protocol or, 5 weeks of working with someone. They've got to be a part of your life.
Definitely. I really am passionate about obviously working with people one-on-one, but for a extended amount of time, because again, this isn't just a 3-month thing, and so I just think all of these things are important to keep in mind. And it kind of all just goes back to your motive and your intention behind your health. Are you just trying to, is it a lifestyle? Is it a mentality? Or is your motive just because you want to look better in clothes, or you want to, get rid of this one problem? I think that it's always important for us to take ownership of our own health, even no matter what. That's always should have been a priority. And I think we've kind of gotten to this place where we've realized that conventional medicine is not really serving us, but then we've moved over to the holistic space, but we're still not taking ownership of our own health by doing the basics.
Totally.
So yeah, it is what it is. We do live in a broken world. However, I just think it could be so much better. You could find so much more joy in your life and in your health if you do just peel all of the noise back and just focus on the basics and really remember that you're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have perfect health. And Jesus is the reason, he's the reason for everything. And if you feel like your health is your obsession, that's a whole other conversation in itself. So,
totally. Yep. Yeah. That's something that I've talked about a lot lately, is this idea of a holistic idol. Is the holistic space, has that become your idol? Mm-hmm. I made a post about this, first thing in the morning, are you worried about how you're going to find time to sit in front of your red light before you're even jumping into Word? Before you read your Bible or a Bible study or something for the day? Where's your priority? Where's your fight? Where's your focus here? Right. I think that's huge.
It's a tough thing to think about. And we all have to kind of take ownership for where we're at, and nobody's perfect, but yet if something we've said is oh, that's me, dig into it more, reach out to either one of us. Kristen's going to tell you how to, get in touch with her. And my DMs are always open. I just think it's so important to see things for what they are and not just keep doing what you've always been doing. Realize that the things we're talking about here really do matter. And they really do. They really are the way to feeling your best and having that joy again and not being so obsessed. And this is a whole conversation for sure that could go on.
Totally. And the last thing I want to say is, I think since I've really dug into my own nervous system work here, one thing that has been really abundantly clear is that there is so much joy to be had outside of your symptoms. There is a whole life to be lived. There is a whole person that you want to be. And if you start living like them and showing up as them and embracing the things that you want to do, even while you're still sick, even while you still have disease or symptoms or whatever, you'd be amazed at what your nervous system does. And the idea of, wow, I must actually be safe. And it starts to heal. And our bodies were perfectly and wonderfully and beautifully made. And I believe with my whole heart that the reason we are so sick is because we interfere with that. But if we do more of getting out of the way and embracing the joy that is truly here for us to have, I think you'll be shocked at what your health can do. And I say this as somebody who, when I decided to jump in on nervous system work and really tuning up my spiritual health as well, because I think as believers, it's really easy to talk about the Bible, and it's another thing to actually live that out and do that. And I think it's easy for us to talk about these, different things within the Bible, but then it's another thing to really, truly put our faith in God. Like it's so easy in the holistic space, especially when you have disease and symptoms, even though we talk about, and the Bible says it over and over, not to fear, we still fear. And when you have fear, your nervous system will keep you wired for fear. So unless you truly let go of that, and another huge portion of, besides the seeking of joy, has been forgiveness. And I would encourage you today to think about what grudges or things, relationships, whatever, arguments that have happened in the past that you are holding on to. And how could you release them and say, I'm going to release myself from this situation. I'm going to forgive. That doesn't require the other person to forgive me, but I'm going to forgive that person, and I am going to release myself from the situation, because it's not my job to judge. That's the Lord's job. It's not my job to judge. It's not my job to gossip. It's not my job to slander. It's not my job to do any of these things. If we do more of releasing that, living our life and giving those big things to God, I think you'll be amazed at how your health naturally improves. And I was able to, just to share this, when I started working on my nervous system, I was full on burnout mode, like full on. If you looked at my labs, you would look at my cortisol, it plummeted. I mean, I was in full out adrenal fatigue, HPA axis dysfunction, burned out, couldn't make it through a day, exhaustion. And I was able to I got rid of every single symptom that I had. And I used 0 protocols, 0 supplements. It was all nervous system and spiritual work. It was all stopping trying to hold on to things and giving things up to the Lord. Yeah. It was taking a step back and going, this is not my space. I am holding on to so much fear and control when it's not my place to have that control. I am not in control. I am not in control. The Lord is in control. I am not in control. And when I let go of those things, the amount of joy and happiness that came into my life and the symptoms that went away with it, it was mind-blowing. Like, it was mind-blowing. And those things are foundational. So when we talk about foundations, I think as much as we talk about, are you getting good sleep? Are you eating throughout the day? Let's talk about a foundational perspective of what does our spiritual health look like?
Because it's one thing to know what the Bible says and all, but it's a whole nother one to actually do it.
We all know that we shouldn't be gripping onto control and holding onto fear. We all know we shouldn't be talking bad about other people. We know that we shouldn't be pointing out other sins without looking at our own sins. We know that we shouldn't be angry or fearful or jealous or envious. We know that we shouldn't be, lusting or have pride or all these things. But do we do them?
Yeah. Because they sneak in. I mean, that's how the enemy works, right?
Totally.
And we know that, but yet we get to a place that, like, how did I get here?
And I will be the first to admit,
in that place. There's so much grace, though.
Absolutely. And I will be the first to admit that although I had I had access to all of the things, one area that I was really lacking on looking was my spiritual health, especially from a lens of forgiveness. As somebody who tends to be, or in the past had been, more bold and out there with like how I, just saying it how it was and stuff, a lot of that included me judging people. Right. And like I said, I will be the first to admit that I had to take a step back and go, whoa, I'm making judgments where it's not my job to.
And that's hard. That's not easy to know. Yeah. But
it will change your life. It will change your life. It will change your spiritual relationship. I mean, it really is something that we don't talk about in this space enough, especially if you are a believer, if you are a Christian in this holistic space. I would challenge you to say, when's the last time you took a deep look? You really took a flashlight out and looked at your spiritual health.
Yeah.
And not just your body, your actual physical arms, legs, eyes, ears.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But it does take work, just like anything, right? Just like the basics, the foundational things that you can do physically. Those are sometimes almost easier than that.
Oh, I agree. I have a routine that I follow now every day for my nervous system health and my spiritual health. Every day I am praying a prayer to make sure that I am taking a deep look and going, am I giving these things to God, or am I trying to control them and handle them myself? Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm doing that every day. And I'm doing that so that it is always top of mind. And it never becomes a situation where I go, you're right, I actually haven't thought about that ever. Yeah. Right. So that is my foundation now. It is more important to me than the health foundations, than like our bodily foundations. Those things have become truly my foundation for every day.
Yeah. So, just to round out this conversation, like, this has been so good. I just think that when we think about how the whole, the integrative health as a whole has evolved, some things are better. A lot of things have maybe went in the wrong direction, but just to peel back the layers of just how we need to be living and how we need to just take introspection of ourselves instead of trying to think that all these things can fix us like that. That's where it should start. And so if anything in this, that this conversation has really struck you, start there. Because I promise the Lord's trying to show you something, especially if you're a believer. He's always trying to lead you. He wants joy for us. He does want help for us, but he wants our hearts. Like, that's what he wants above anything else. And so I just really appreciate this conversation. I know we could go on, but we'll end it here. I really would love for you to tell the listeners how they can just, stay up with you. I know that you don't, I love that you're focusing on motherhood. I think that is so important. And I love following along with you. So just share a little bit how they can do that.
Totally. I still, share my life and kind of what's happening on Instagram, but I'm being called to follow motherhood right now. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm just sharing what I've learned along the way, a little bit of, my journey. And so if you'd like to follow along, I'm at Prevention Pharmacist, all one word. And I would just like to say one last thing before we leave. And that's just an encouragement that you need to really take a step back and simplify this for yourself, because the holistic space is never going to get simpler. I think you're going to find in years to come, it is going to get more loud. You are going to find more gadgets and more supplements and more protocols and more this and that. And I would just like to really encourage you to go, what is going to move the needle for me? What is going to move the needle for me? It's going to be those foundations, right? Those health and spiritual foundations. It's going to be working one-on-one with a practitioner who knows your story, your background, and your history, and working on your nervous system. I really believe that is the ticket. Anything else is extra, but you've got to learn how to simplify. You've got to be able to take a step back and live your life and find the joy amidst the broken world that we live in.
Yeah. And I just love how you summed that up, for sure. Thank you so much for having this conversation and just sharing your heart and being open and vulnerable. And that's one of the things I love about you. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being on.
You're welcome.
If this episode has served you in any way, I would love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways over on Instagram and tag me at Kari Coody. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so we can continue to learn and grow together.